go into all the experience that these two have. I mean, we are lucky we have a 2-for-1 deal. Over a half a century of experience in law enforcement between the two of them, which is crazy. I'll say that together, that way I'm not calling out anybody's ages. But we are very fortunate. This is the first time I've met Captain Bailey. I'm excited to hear from him. I've heard Sheriff Nelson speak several times. One of the things that always amazes me about Sheriff Nelson, he majored in communication, which I didn't know, but what I did know is he always remembers everybody's names when he talks to people, and that always surprised me because he meets so many people. But I think the majoring in communication probably helped him with that, and also with having a great career in Deschutes County. So we'd like to call you both up, please.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I am just celebrating my 30th year with our office. Wow. And thank you. It's very surreal to me. I'm a temporary occupant serving the office of sheriff. There's been 8 sheriffs before me. There will be many sheriffs after me. And I've always had that at the center of my heart when I go through public service, because I work for you all, and I'm so proud and honored to do it. Serving as your sheriff has been the greatest professional honor of my life. Now I'll be doing it for 14 more months, and I want to take a quick detour just to recognize my partner, William Bailey, because you can't do it without great people. As a matter of fact, the great people you work with are the ones who do it. I mean, all they need is some support, empowerment, and the tools to do the job. And really, leadership ought to be fairly easy after that point. And I've been blessed my career, especially in service as your sheriff, to have worked with these wonderful, hardworking individuals who go out there and provide the best public safety and customer service to you all. And in about 14 months, I am going to be employer of the sheriff. I'll be a civilian, be retired. And so it's important to me that we all have somebody that continues the legacy of your sheriff's office and that desire to work with great people. And so just a quick thing about William Bailey. Yes, he is running for sheriff, and I know this isn't a political organization, so I won't detour too long. But I will tell you that William is a selfless individual who focuses on service to the others. And I think, I was visiting with Don on the way in, and I think that's the most important attribute of any elected official, and frankly, any appointed official. Those in it for themselves, disaster is sure to follow. I've seen it. And so I will leave you all with that. And I'll ask my partner if he has anything else he wants to share. Okay.
No, I just appreciate the mention, sir. And
well,
Sheriff Nelson has been a great mentor to me over the last, been with the Sheriff's Office for nearly 23 years, but we've been working closely together for the last 6 or 7, and I just want to publicly thank him for his service and his support and mentorship to me in my career. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask Bill to keep my timekeeper, because I am semi-dead stop at 5 till, because I'm following my friend Amber said 5 till. So if you can let me know when we have a couple minutes to 5 till, and I'll turn it over to questions. If you have a question you want to ask me, just ask me as we're visiting, because I want to answer your questions. I'll hang around afterwards, so will my partner Bill. But I'll start with this. There is no better employment evaluation that I can show you than our annual numbers. And I want to touch on our annual numbers real quick. Between all the activities your sheriff's office does, and that's the 7,000 inmates that are booked into our care and custody through the year, the nearly 80,000 calls for service that our field operations will handle, which includes civil papers and cases and traffic stops and various activities. We probably have about 160,000 activities that we do on an annual basis. That includes the contacts with the 7,000 inmates in our care and custody. So for 160,000 contacts that your sheriff's office, and that's a conservative estimate, by the way, but 160,000 contacts that your sheriff's office does every year, I think it's important to point out the numbers of use of force, and this is hands-on use of force that you have. You have 64 in our corrections division and 122 in our patrol division. So less than 200 hands-on uses of force out of all those 160,000 contacts. And then the other thing I like to point out is for 2022, we had a total of 8 complaints lodged against the office. To me, that tells the story. First of all, it tells the story that we have recruited, hired, retained, promoted, demoted, and fired in some cases the right people, because it's all about conducting business for you all. And those folks that believe in what they do, and they do it selflessly, will go out there and provide that public safety and customer service to you all. And they'll do it because they believe in it. They'll do it because they've been trained to do it, and they'll do it because they live in your community as well, for the benefit of or we benefit from the very services we provide. And that's why our nearly 300 individuals and then 200 volunteers on top of that believe in what they do. So I want to touch on a couple of political topics because it is political season. And I dislike elections. Full disclosure, elections suck, okay? I've been through many of them in my career. 2 I was intimately involved, as you all know, because I've applied for my job twice during an election. During elections, you can always expect inaccurate information and mudslinging. That just kind of goes without saying. I'll never be all right with that. However, I do get that that is what occurs. But I think it's important to set stories straight in different times that we live in some of those. So you might have questions about that. But I want to talk briefly about elections from the standpoint of the fire levy is 157 votes ahead. That should tell everyone in this room that every vote counts. When we passed our law enforcement district for rural services in 2006, it only passed by less than 200 votes. Every vote counts. And I think that sometimes we can get burdened by the thought that we don't have a say or we don't have something to offer, but we should offer our vote, because oftentimes our vote is our voice when it comes to situations like that. So I'll tell everybody that I really encourage voting. When we take a look at elections, Measure 110 was voted in by the voters of Oregon. Nearly over 60% of folks in Oregon think that there's something severely wrong with Measure 110 now, and I will echo that all day long. I will tell you, Measure 110 was doomed from the beginning because it was sold on a false promise. Sadly, apparently, accurate information doesn't have to be required during elections, but I've already touched on that. The premise that Measure 110 was sold on is that it's going to get individuals who need it treatment. There's only a couple things wrong with that. First of all, Oregon is ranked very highly in the top 3 of access to drugs and use of drugs by younger individuals particularly, but also ranked dead last in treatment options. When a state has those 2 things, I don't think the correct phrase is going for it, but when the state has those 2 things coupled with it, a ballot measure like 110 is not going to be a good thing, and we're seeing the results of that. A couple things wrong with Measure 110. First of all, the framework wasn't put in place. It took 2 years for that marijuana tax revenue to be diverted to these health assessment organizations. It's too long. There was no framework beforehand about what we would do about drug education because, frankly, our younger folks are going to be quick learners and a great place to invest your resources and your money. There was no expansion of treatment services or how we were going to access those treatment services. It was all about decriminalizing the drugs because these individuals are addicts and it shouldn't be criminal. Listen, I believe in every proactive measure we can do as a community. I think that's how you break the circle. That's why we have a Central Oregon Partnerships for Youth Mentoring program with kids who have incarcerated parents. But there is also accountability. Accountability is for us all, whether we like it or not. It doesn't much matter if you were a victim of something or you had life circumstances that brought you where you are. We all pull ourselves out of those circumstances or we don't. Now, it is true, sometimes addicts don't choose to be addicts. And I don't discount that. I don't think there's anybody in this room here, that would say they don't have a family member who's an addict. They don't have a friend who's an addict. That's just not the case. I bet if I asked the question, we'd all raise our hands, and I'd start with me. Okay? I have friends and family members who are addicts. It's how we go about helping those individuals seek help and get the hand up that they need. And I'll tell you, Measure 110 is not the answer, because Measure 110 decriminalized drugs, which lowers the circumstances in the instances where law enforcement has an opportunity to interact with these folks, get them into the criminal justice system, where, by the way, and for years, they have been offered alternate paths, diversion, drug treatment, things so that they can better themselves. The free-for-all that we have right now, by the way, couple that with the influx of fentanyl, highly dangerous, highly addictive. Couple that with the influx of fentanyl that we have coming into our communities from unsecured borders, it's a recipe for disaster. And that's why you're seeing overdose deaths increase. You will see homelessness increase. And it's not humane. It's not humane to have these individuals living in the situations they're living in these encampments. We need to do something about it. We need to be smart about it. And we also need to realize there is no solution to homelessness. We will always have it in some form because there are individuals who make decisions and choices. We should offer them hands up where we can and where it's appropriate. And we should also hold folks accountable where it's appropriate. And that's what we're going to be looking at when we visit with the legislature about tweaking and adjusting Measure 110. Look, we are a law and order community. We are a law and order society. Our lives are based on rules. If I'm late for work, well, I probably get visited with, just like we all do. If I don't do my chores, I'm going to get visited with. That's how life works. So, I will, I think, how's it going, Bill?
You got 3 more minutes, sir.
Oh, good. Okay, that's a good place, and I'm sure many of you would like me to step off my soapbox, and I will. It's a good place to start with questions. Michelle.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the de-escalation center and how it's doing?
Oh, sure. So I think you're talking about Stabilization Center.
Stabilization.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Stabilization Center, we're a significant silent partner in that. Basically, that is to provide care and calm for individuals that are going through mental health crisis, which, by the way, we're just going to see that continue to go higher because folks have less coping skills, and I don't blame them. It's odd. We have instant access to inaccurate information through social media and a whole bunch of roller coaster rides that we can ride with the news, and we don't even know if it's accurate or not. The Stabilization Center is great for folks to bring family members who need a little bit of mental health help. By the way, it varies. You can sit in the lobby and have some crackers and juice just to get away from it all, or they also have warm handoffs to more and additional care to help individuals along. The key component there, and why we're such a major investor in the Stabilization Center, is it keeps folks out of the criminal justice system who don't belong in the criminal justice system. It's a proactive measure. Not everybody belongs in the criminal justice system. And so it's an awesome tool. We're going to look for more secure funding as we go in the future because that's needed. But it is a success. Numerous individuals, and really a resource that only 20% of law enforcement agencies are its overall use. I thought that would have been higher, but it's a community resource. So thank you for asking that.
And will you build another one close into Redmond area, or where will you be central in the Bend area?
It's, that is something that they can take a look at in the future. There's no immediate plans to do that because my concern would be if you start diluting your resources, you're not really going to have a resource at all. And so since Bend is pretty central, and other counties even utilize it, but maybe as the community grows and resources grow, because the one thing you're all struggling with, it's hard to find resources right now for folks to come and work with you to do the job. But maybe as that moves forward, they might have plans to expand that. No plans yet. Are there any other questions?
Sure. Of course, the fire department is hoping to recruit new folks, and you as well, I'm sure, to replace people who are retiring. Are they able to find places to live in and around this community?
Great question, Truman. It's difficult. It's a challenge, which is one of the reasons we've even visited with like the county commission and the county about maybe it's time to look at some employee or workforce housing, because something we've heard for years is affordable housing and Listen, affordable housing is tough to come by because you've got folks that are in a for-profit business and you're asking them to forego profits. Look, I get it. And then when you have a beautiful place like this, similar to the Vail, Colorado syndrome, you've really got to look at employee or workforce housing. And I think that will be the future of it. There's some places that are doing that so that you can get folks to have an opportunity to be here a few years, maybe save up a down payment. One of the things that some of our teammates are doing is looking at just the other side of Jefferson County or Crook County, you know, on the ranch or things like that for more affordable living. I want to still see like at least 80% of our workforce living in the community where we work, because I think it creates a bond. I'm not saying it's required, but I think it creates a bond. Anyone else? Oh,
So,
John.
first of all, thank you for your service. 30 years, that's impressive. And before that, I appreciated coaching with you. So you've been serving your community in more than one way, so thank you. I just wanted to ask kind of a general question. In your 30 years, what is one thing that has surprised you the most of all of that you've encountered, and what has maybe been the most difficult thing that you've encountered?
Right. Well, the biggest surprise is everything changes often, and you wouldn't think that would be a surprise, would you? Because, look, we all need change. None of us like it. I mean, that's kind of how life goes, isn't it? But the biggest surprise is how much things change. Methamphetamine has always been a big threat to public safety. It's still a big threat. It's still a high driver of deaths across Oregon. But if somebody would have said, hey, there's going to be a substance that's very successful in medical use, and guess what? Of course, criminals, and there's very intelligent criminals, as we all know, but guess what? Criminals and drug cartels are going to try and make a big buck about it, and it takes a very small amount to take effect. As a matter of fact, it takes an amount the size of 5 grains of sand to be potentially lethal. Fentanyl. Somebody tell me fentanyl would come and be the threat. It's a big surprise. But one thing I will tell you that has pleasantly surprised me is that ladies and gentlemen working in law enforcement and public safety really morph with those times. I mean, you look at the national news, goodness sake, first of all, I'd love to just flush them all down the toilet. But when you start looking at some of the national news outlets, look, they're trying to make a profit. They don't care about accuracy. They don't care about facts. They're all the Jerry Springer show now. It's like it's all opinion pages. And I just don't have time for it. And when you start taking a look at those narratives and they focus in on these bad apples, these ladies and gentlemen who, by the way, probably never belonged in the profession to begin with, which is why we have a strict background process that we do, are now making the name for their close to 1 million law enforcement officer partners. You will have bad apples in every profession, like I'm sure you all can think of bad teachers or bad corporate employees, or fill in the blank. Here's the thing. The important thing is what do you do with the bad apples when you find out about them? Do you take care of business? Yeah, that's what you do, and you get them out of the business. Thanks, John. Awesome, Amber.
So first off, I just want to say that I appreciate the way that you've always led. I mean, I know you've taken a lot of slack for, standing your ground on stuff and not giving back and saying what you believe. And, I think you live by what you believe, so it's easy to accept when you say that kind of stuff. And I've seen other departments that haven't necessarily, they've caved on stuff that you haven't. So I've always appreciated that you've taken the harder road instead of the easy one. And then my other question was, do you see bringing back with the rise in narcotics, bringing back the sheriff's department narcotics dogs at all?
So first of all, thank you very much for what you said. Look, I've always just tried to do what's right. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a little hint. Having you all supporting me as my bosses is exactly what helps give that support to saying what's right. Look, I don't expect people to like everything I say. If I expected that, I'd have gone into a different profession. But what I do strive for at the end of the day is to earn people's respect. If I'm not the employee you're looking for, you're going to fire me. And I'm well aware of that. That's fine. My filter fell out long ago because I just don't have time. I always try and be professional. But my filter fell out long ago because I feel like you all's expectation of me is to say it how it is. The second thing is drug dogs. Yes, that's a hard process because of what Measure 110 did. So what Amber's referring to, and I have tremendous respect for Amber and her husband Barry, because he's in public safety as well. But the problem that Measure 110 did was when you decriminalize drugs, it's very difficult to use drug dogs on open air sniffs. You have to develop probable cause and some other issues because you don't know if you're smelling for a small amount of drugs. You don't know if you're smelling for a traffic ticket size amount of drugs or the mother load, right? Mm-hmm. So it created this weird thing where lawyers, no offense to any lawyers in the room, but if you visit with 5 lawyers, you have 5 different opinions. That's what I'm going to tell you. So you try and work your way through that, but there are discussions. There's now dogs that can scent fentanyl, which is crazy to me. We're looking into that. I don't know how that works. So, but yes, that would be something we want to look into and see if that's a path forward.
Yeah, I know it's new. I mean, Kara just got re-certified on it last weekend, and it is something that's unusual. And I know that there was a ton of law enforcement agencies across the country that got rid of dogs where there was, different legalizations. Partly because the dogs were trained in marijuana, and that's, I think, impossible to untrain. But it is something that I know you guys have so many different departments within your office that I was just curious if that was something. I know you have amazing bite dogs, and patrol dogs, those search dogs.
Well, thank you for bringing it up because I'm going to actually, when I get back, I'm going to find out where we are with that. Can you help remind me, sir? Thank you.
What is the attraction of fentanyl? Why does somebody try to sell it to me? What benefit am I supposed to get from it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you get high from it, and here's the thing. Cartels push fentanyl because it's cheap to make, way cheaper than heroin. Heroin's kind of not as big a thing anymore. Still destructive. But the reason fentanyl creates addicts, and the cartels are trying to get as much fentanyl in here because they make more money. It's just like with porous borders. Now down in San Diego, and among other places, it's $15,000 a head to get individuals across the border. By the way, make no mistake about border crossings. It is not one country crossing those borders. It is multiple countries crossing those borders. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, there's dangerous individuals crossing the border. This is not a humanitarian question completely. It's about individuals who are seeking better lives. Great. I've got friends who went through the appropriate regulations to seek a better life. They're furious about porous borders. Mm-hmm. So it's about doing things the right way. But that's why, Carl, it's about the money. Drug cartels want to drive the profit.
Let's also remember with fentanyl, it's a cheap replacement for the opiates that were prescribed by doctors to people. It turned them into smack chasing addicts. And it's a big problem. It's gotten a little bit better. They're giving out less than 30 days of pills with every surgery. But everybody that has surgery that's just taken a week's worth of pills is asking to become an addict. And it goes on left and right. And doctors that were making kickbacks and pharmaceutical companies are largely to blame for a lot of what we have going on and why people are searching for a replacement for those drugs.
Thank you. The one thing I will add on the tails of that too, and through 2 different presidential administrations, we also have to keep, look, America's a powerhouse. America is respected. Now, sometimes we have different things occur in the country, and if I'm being politically correct enough there, but we have different views from different elected officials. But look, if we say something, other countries will tend to listen, especially we provide a lot of aid to other countries, okay, and help. One thing that kind of fell by the wayside is fentanyl production or precursors, where we used to have rules in place that, hey, you can't make this stuff. That's kind of gone by the wayside. So now it's China pumping up a lot of fentanyl production, okay? And so that's why it's important to have those relationships. We've got to have some of those rules come back into place. Anything? Lauren, did you have some?
I was just going to follow up on the drug dogs, because you still have some of the relationship with the code team.
Absolutely.
And they do have, I know some of their dogs, though, are really focusing on the cartels as opposed to...
They do, but their dogs available, their dogs are available to come help us, yes.
I met one of their dogs yesterday, which was very fun watching her do some drug searches in the room.
Is that the ladybug?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great dogs. Thank you all so much, and I'll hang around. I appreciate you all.
We have a thank you gift for your time, for you too. Captain Bailey, this is handmade.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. You guys, thank you. So we did go over a little bit today, but it's because we have so much to celebrate here in Kiwanis and in our community. So I'll leave you with this. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. John F. Kennedy.
Make sure you get some of those pies, please. I don't want to have to bring them.
I have